Recently, the Union government has released updated estimates of India's GDP after making significant revisions to previous quarters and years. Gross domestic product or GDP essentially represents the total monetary or market value of all finished goods and services produced within a country's borders during a specified period. It includes all goods and services produced by both Indian citizens and foreign nationals within the territorial boundaries for the given time frame, which is generally one fiscal year. GDP serves as the broad measure of overall domestic production and acts as a comprehensive report card for a country's economic health. It comprises goods and services produced for sale in the market and also includes some non-market production such as defense or education services provided by the government. Not all productive activity is included in GDP. For instance, unpaid work performed at home or by volunteers as well as black market activities are excluded due to the difficulties in accurately calculating and valuing them. GDP is essential as it provides information about the country's or economy's size and performance. Real GDP is adjusted for inflation, while nominal GDP is not, making real GDP almost always slightly lower than its nominal counterpart. In broad terms, an increase in real GDP is interpreted as a sign of robust economic performance. When real GDP grows strongly, employment is likely to increase as companies hire more workers and individuals have more disposable income. Conversely, when GDP contracts, as it did in many countries during the global economic crisis of 2008 and the COVID-19 pandemic, employment often declines. In some instances, GDP may be growing, but not sufficiently to create enough jobs for those seeking work. India's economy performed better than expected until March 2024. Thereafter, the GDP growth slowdown in fiscal year 2025 is sharper than estimated, declining from 9.2% to 6.5%. So, why has this occurred? It can be said that India is driven by domestic demand or consumption. This means our economy relies more on domestic consumption than on exports to other countries. Nearly 70% of India's GDP is propelled by domestic consumption, making India the world's fourth largest consumer market. In addition to private consumption, India's GDP is boosted by government spending, investments, and exports. Therefore, based on this, we can say that factors that contributed to the decline of GDP could be: Number 1. Government spending. Government expenditure, particularly on infrastructure, remains low and constitutes about 10% of GDP. Despite COVID-19, government spending has increased only marginally, with a growth rate of just 4.2%. This is insufficient to create a stimulus in the economy, nor has it successfully crowded in private investments. The crowding in phenomena occurs when higher government spending leads to increased economic growth and more profitable investment opportunities for the private sector. Number 2. Rising prices. Inflation or sustained rising prices can erode the purchasing power of wages and incomes, meaning the amount of goods and services that can be purchased with those wages and incomes decreases. As a result, people can buy less with the same amount of money. Number 3. Stagnant real output and net imports. Real output growth, that is, growth in actual goods and services, is likely stagnant or even negative. India's net exports are typically negative, meaning imports exceed exports. However, the gap between exports and imports has narrowed over recent years. Nonetheless, increased imports result in greater outflows of foreign exchange reserves, placing a monetary burden on the economy. Number 4. Wage stagnation. While some workers may have experienced nominal wage increases, the rise in prices may mean their real wages, that is, wages adjusted for inflation, have not increased or may have even decreased. However, despite disappointing GDP figures of 5.4%, India's situation has not yet reached stagflation, which is a combination of high inflation, stagnant economic growth, and elevated unemployment. Number 5. consumption slowdown. Diminished income growth and rising prices have resulted in a slowdown in consumption, both urban and rural, leading to weak demand. Presently, private final consumption expenditure, which accounts for about 60% of India's GDP and is the most critical determinant of growth. However, its growth rate since fiscal year 2020 has been relatively low, at a CAGR of only 4.8%. Number 6. Employment challenges and private investment. Many contend that India's economic growth has been characterized as jobless, indicating that while GDP has grown, employment opportunities have not kept pace. This is referred to as jobless growth. Private sector has also shown reluctance to accelerate investments that create job opportunities, in turn further weakening consumer demand. The combination of weak demand, unemployment, inadequate infrastructure, and high private debt has compounded the situation. India's real GDP growth has been below 5%, indicating a relatively slow increase in output growth within the economy. While excluding the effects of inflation, India's real output growth rate remains insufficient. This signifies that despite rising prices, there has been no tangible improvement in output, employment, or wages, all contributing to a stagnation of the standard of living. If India aims to become a developed nation by 2047, it must achieve a growth rate of 7% annually. Currently, India is growing at half that rate, which may hinder its long-term growth potential. This brings us to the end of our video. We hope that you found it informative for your exam preparations. Please click the like button, share our videos with your friends, and subscribe to Exact IAS on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. Thank you for watching this. I will see you in our next.